How can educators create an equitable balance between setting high standards of learning while including disadvantaged learners? And this for me was something I really wanted to challenge. This question for me is something I absolutely want to take on for a bit, just to share with you for a bit. And when I saw this question, how can educators create an equitable balance between setting high standards of learning while including disadvantaged learners? And I thought about this question a lot. I read through the thread, I read through the comments, and I thought about this question a lot. And here are some things I just want to share with us. When I saw this, I thought of expectations. What do we mean when we say high standards? How do we have high expectations for all students? And tonight, as we talk about equity, is this equity, or is this a practice of identifying, labeling, and separating? Because oftentimes our students will perform to our expectations, and I'm sure you have heard a number of stories of a teacher who have gone into a class of students maybe who do not perform at a certain level, and because of her expectations were high, she taught them to a higher level and they came up. And that's what's happening. You know, if you look at the studies being done and many other articles about teacher expectation, and you'll understand that this is a troubling fact for us, especially in light of equity. It is troubling, right? Teacher expectation is a serious element in student success, very serious element. Principal expectation is a serious element in a school success. You walk into a school, do you walk in as a principal with a deficit mentality? Peter talked about is walkabout. When you walk about in your school, I don't know what your school is like, but do we go to the gifted classrooms and then our expectations are high? And then do we walk past maybe an ESL classroom or ELL classroom, or do we walk by I don't know if you're we separate our students in our school, or the word you should say, or we organize our students in our schools? Because, you know, in many parts, our students are still being labeled and segregated and placed in different types of programs, different types of rooms. What are our expectations? What are our expectations? My first opportunity to teach a behavioral class, I remember back in 2011. And I went to a school. There were a school in Scarborough region, and there were 5 boys in the home school behavioral class. And, you know, they weren't expecting my kind of teaching. And, you know, I saw the resistance. They were angry at me, and I saw the resistance the first week. They were angry at me, you know, using the F word, that kind of stuff, really upset. And I remember clearly when I asked them to write, and they would give me with the journals, and they would give me one sentence. When I say what I mean, one sentence. And then they would draw something, and I said to them, this was grade, most of them were in grade 5, and I said to them, you know, I want more. And they said to me, this is what they can do, and this is what they said, this is what they have done all the time, this is what the teacher accepted, and this is what they did. And I said, absolutely not. I said, you can write me 5, 6, 7, 10 sentences. As a matter of fact, you could write me 100 sentences. And I kept saying that to those students, and I can tell you, over the course of about, I was there for maybe 2 to 3 months. Over the course of that time, those students gave me way more than they ever thought they could produce, because my expectations were high. We had computers in the room, and the computers in the room were being used to keep them quiet. Literally, the computers in the room were being used to keep them quiet. So they'll play video games. I'm sure you can imagine how shocked I was, coming from the Caribbean region, coming from a different setting, to see students playing literally video game. And I'm talking about video game with shooting, with violence on it. This happened in 2011, my experience. And so I had to set high standards for these students. It took me a while, but we got there where expectations were very high, and they lived up to that. And this is not the only story. I'm sure you have heard many stories like this before. Way too many of our students are aware that the school, the principal, and the teachers hold different expectations of them based on a number of characteristics, based on their race, based on their social economic status, based on their sexual orientation, or based on their religion. And that is why, as educators, as persons engaged in a course like this about social issues in school, you have to examine your practice. You have to examine your leadership to find out where you are at when it comes to these kind of things. They know, the students know the minute they walk into the school that they are being othered. There are many students who walk into school every single day, and they know as they walk in, they are being othered. And when they're there, so as we get into equity, as we start talking about these things, we have to position ourselves. Because we are the persons as educators leading the charge. It is very important that we position ourselves. And I'm going to continue reading again from Ryan 2003 in his book, Leading Diverse Schools, right? And it comes from page 159. Many principals find that they are not adequately prepared to deal with the novel situations, like we just talked about, that regularly arise in diverse settings. They also do not understand the processes associated with diversity, like racism, in helpful ways. Many principals, you have to be honest, many principals are living in a bubble. Their schools are not diverse, and then they are parachuted from that school to another school, and they are not prepared. This is unfortunate, because principals are undoubtedly the most influential individuals at the school level. They, more than others, are in positions to make a difference in their respective schools. The more administrators and concerned others know about leadership and diversity, the better prepared they will be to make decisions that will eliminate the difficulties that many non-Anglo-European students face in school and in life, ease the way for them to master the school curriculum and increase their life chances, right? Equity, we're talking about equity, right? In his book, he says, I favor inclusion because I believe that the practices associated with it present the best way to resist. Notice my choice of word here, is not mine, but his choice of word. Best way to resist or eliminate the exclusionary patterns that routinely place groups of non-Anglo-European students at a disadvantage in schools and elsewhere. Inclusionary practices, right, are those practices, inclusionary practices target those very things that are responsible for obstructing the academic and life opportunities of these particular groups of students. They are designed to put an end to exclusion by accommodating, for example, the knowledge, the languages, religions, and values these groups in very, very tangible ways. So this is quite important as we talk about leadership, right? And as I said, we talked about it just now. What are the inclusionary practices in your school? Think about that for a minute. Think about that as you go away from this presentation, from this recording. What are the inclusionary practices in your school? And I want to end this segment. By this quote here The TDSB secondary school data confirms that not all groups of students are being provided with the same level of success as others. And this came from a research, the TDSB cohort study, which followed all secondary students over a 5-year period, revealed that certain groups of students were more likely to drop out of secondary school before graduation than others. And I'm sure you see that word in quotation mark, drop out, because of course it's not really dropout. We talk about being pushed out, right? And of course, George Day, I'm sure you know about that book by George Day, Reconstructing Dropout. Very interesting book. Something you should look at. Reconstructing Dropout, a critical ethnography of the dynamics of Black students' disengagement from school. So we need to think about that. Think about these certain groups in our schools and how we engage with them.